did your parents do for your own good? In my family, we had something called preparation morning every single morning at 4:44 a.m. It wasn't like other families who just woke up and had breakfast. My mom would ring this old copper bell 3 times and we'd all line up in the hallway wearing our assigned colors. I was blue, my sister Hannah was red, my little brother Ethan was yellow. Each of us had a different preparation. Mine was the drowning box. Every morning I had to lie in this wooden box while mom poured water over my face through a cloth for exactly 3 minutes while I held my breath. She'd stop just when I started convulsing. Hannah had to burn herself. She had to hold her palm over a candle flame until the skin blistered. Ethan had needles. 7 needles pushed under his fingernails that stayed there until preparations ended. Mom called it inheritance readiness. I thrashed through it every single morning. The rule was you couldn't refuse or preparations got doubled the next day. The strangest part was that we couldn't tell anyone. Not teachers when they saw Hannah's bandaged hands. Not friends when I showed up with bloodshot eyes and burst capillaries. Not even dad who worked night shifts and never saw what happened. I only realized how messed up it was when I stayed at my friend Carlos's house and his family just woke up whenever and ate cereal. But the worst part was the progression. Every year on our birthdays, the preparations got harder. When I turned 13, the drowning extended to 5 minutes and mom started adding salt to the water. When Hannah turned 14, she had to burn both palms and her forearms. When Ethan turned 8, the needles became 10 and went deeper. Mom said it was necessary to activate our potential before it activated us. When I got older, I started pushing back. Why did we torture ourselves every morning while other kids got to sleep in and eat breakfast and live normal lives? I remember the morning I turned 16 and mom brought out a plastic bag instead of the cloth. I stood there in my blue pajamas and just said no. Mom grabbed my wrist with this grip I'd never felt before. Her eyes looked almost yellow in the hallway light. The inheritance chooses its moment, she said. We choose ours first. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. Carlos's family had normal routines. Morning cartoons, pancakes on weekends, no drowning, no burning, no needles, just life. I finally refused completely when I turned 17. Mom went silent, completely silent. She just stood there holding that copper bell while Hannah cradled her scarred hands and Ethan's fingers dripped blood on the hardwood. Then she walked to her room and locked the door. We heard her on the phone speaking in a language I didn't recognize. The next morning she acted like nothing happened, made us breakfast, drove us to school, smiled and waved. But that night I heard her crying in her room. She kept repeating a name, Vera, 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 over and over. Still the whole thing haunted me. What was this inheritance she kept talking about? Why were our preparations so specifically brutal? Why did she look terrified when I refused? A few months later I was helping clean out the attic when I found a box labeled Vera 1987. Inside were medical files, psychiatric evaluations, photos of a woman who looked exactly like my mom but younger. Her body was covered in scars, burn marks, puncture wounds. The name on the files was Vera Rains. My mom's name is Patricia. I read through everything that night while everyone slept. Vera Rains had been institutionalized for something called cyclical hereditary psychosis. The doctors noted that her mother had the same condition, and her grandmother. Each manifested differently. One believed she was drowning constantly and clawed her own throat raw. One felt phantom flames and threw herself into water until she died. One was convinced needles were growing from inside her body and tore her skin apart trying to pull them out. The onset age varied, but always happened before 25. Then I found the adoption papers. Vera Rains had given up a baby girl in 1987. Patricia Vera Rains, my mother. The final document made my hands shake. It was a journal entry from Vera. She wrote that she'd found a way to prevent the psychosis from manifesting. You had to experience the exact sensation of your hereditary delusion in controlled doses before onset. Build tolerance, like a psychological vaccine, drowning sensations for hydrophobic psychosis, controlled burns for pyrophobic breaks, needle exposure for penetration delusions. She'd tried it on herself, but it was too late. The curse had already taken hold. She'd torn her own skin off, believing needles were erupting from her bones. But maybe her daughter could be saved. Maybe her daughter's children could be saved. I looked at the dates. Mom would be 25 next month. Hannah was 19. I was 17. Ethan was only 12. I found mom in the kitchen at 4:43 a.m. the next morning. She was holding the copper bell but not ringing it, just staring at it. I saw fresh scratch marks on her arms. It's starting, she said. I can feel them moving under my skin. The needles, just like grandmother Vera. Full story on channel, link below.